So let's see what Mr. Ackman has to say about why we can't have nice things anymore, like Red Dead 3. And 3, 2, 1, let's go. Now please, it would help if I actually had this up. Okay, you stupid anime girl. Let's try again. 3, 2, 1, go.
And today, I don't have a hot take for you. I got a sad take for you. I don't believe Rockstar can or should make a Red Dead Redemption 3.
What you say is heresy.
I can hear it now. I can hear it. The doubting. Oh, the doubting. What kind of nonsense is this, Ackman? I thought you loved these games. Don't you want to see more of them? Yes, I do. But I also don't want it to be ruined. Red Dead can continue, but maybe the time for redemption is past. So today we'll be going over some of the more popular fan theories and
Corey, I don't know. I honestly don't know if they announced it. The only thing I've heard from Rockstar is the only thing I heard about from Rockstar is GTA 6, which they've been working on forever and a day. No, Grim, you're thinking of Rocksteady. That's a different company. We're talking about Rockstar of, GTA, not Rocksteady. Different company.
ideas for a potential Red Dead Redemption 3, and why I don't think any of them would work or are good enough. And that's the sad reality, but that's the way it is. It's easy to want more of a good thing. There's nothing wrong with that, and I'm not calling you a rat if you disagree with me. But you should definitely let me know in the comments what you think of these fan theories, and if you agree or disagree with me. I'm very interested to hear what people have to say.
It's a bold statement, but they did pretty good with GTA 5. That's a game that's been around, at least 10 years and still going strong, and they're looking at releasing GTA 6 shortly. And GTA 6 looks decent from what I've seen from the trailers. It looks like it'll be decent. Rockstar Games is one that has yet to exhibit any tendency to... Yeah. Yeah, okay, Red Dead 3 is still... I'm not surprised that, and I'm not surprised Red Dead 3 is still confirmed because they've been, they've probably been all hands on deck working on GTA 6. So once GTA 6 releases, then maybe there'll be some kind of an announcement for RDR 3. But we'll see. I mean, who knows? Maybe they're not looking to continue it. Who knows? We'll see.
Now, I have a few other RDR2 videos in the works. I'm still working on the main review, and I also have a deep dive into Dutch as a character coming out as well. But as I've been working on these videos and re-experiencing the story, I've been trying to find a good idea, a good concept for RDR3, and I just can't. It's nearly fucking impossible, and I'm gonna give you the reasons why. Also,
okay.
Spoilers for these two gems, just be aware. First, let's figure out what is absolutely essential to have in a Red Dead Redemption 3, so we can cull all the ideas that are simply out of the question. Well, like most of Rockstar's games, we need a protagonist.
Well, when did they say they were releasing GTA 6? Was it 2025 or is it going to be late 2024? I forget now. I'd say they probably are rushing the development of... It's 2025. Okay. So it sounds like they're not rushing development of GTA 6 because that game's been getting worked on for years, I believe. And the thing is, they've already got really good bones to work with GTA 5. GTA 5 already has some really good bones to work with. And Red Dead, in terms of using, the engine. So it already has a really good foundation. They're not trying to break new ground with an all-new game engine or anything. They're not trying to make a new type of game. It's still going to be GTA, but it's going to be it's going to be in a different environment. It's going to have, a different look to it, different attitudes. But I think it's still going to be GTA. So the 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 groundwork is pretty much already done for them. And this is kind of it shouldn't be too difficult for them to make a good game. Now, what will happen? I mean, it is speculation. And Idova, welcome. Yeah. Isn't GTA going back? I don't know if it's gone back to Vice City. For some reason, I'm thinking it's going to Miami, but I could be wrong about that. It's possible maybe going back to Vice City. I'm not entirely sure. And Grim, you're not wrong either. And that's why I'm saying we have to wait and see, because a lot of games have got some good hype. A lot of them have. Suicide Squad actually had a lot of good hype leading up to it. There was some really good hype. People were eagerly anticipating it, and then it launched, and Warner Brothers and Rocksteady lost 200 million. They lost their ass, and half of Rocksteady's now getting fired. So yes, it is entirely possible GTA 6 might come out and be horrible. It is absolutely possible. We simply don't know. Ubisoft, they had Skull and Bones, where they released Skull and Bones completely ignoring the superb foundational work already in existence with Assassin's Creed Black Flag. And they made an absolutely dogshit game for whatever reason. And we're seeing, we're seeing, we've seen games get hyped and release and be dogshit. We have. But we don't know until, with a lot of these, we don't know until release. Sometimes we get a heads up. Uh, know if I don't know if I would qualify Cyberpunk as a flop. It definitely stumbled badly when it first launched, but CD Projekt Red was able to really turn that around. They were able to severely turn that around to make it really good. Same thing with No Man's Sky. No Man's Sky had a lot of hype. When it released, it was extremely disappointing. Yeah, it's they there is a lot of overhype, underdeliver. We have seen that a lot lately. Um, and did they? I haven't heard too much about Destiny 2. Um, I think a big part of what's helping Destiny 2 is the fact that they brought Cade 6 back with Nathan Fillion. I think that might have helped. But yeah, I mean, we're seeing, some of the things that we're seeing, a lot of this hype, like with the Assassin's Creed Shadows, with Star Wars Outlaws, these are both Ubisoft products, and we're seeing how people are already not thrilled about it. Yeah, well, I mean, we're gonna have to see when it comes to the anti-cheats. Like, I never played GTA 5, so I have no basis for comparison. I've seen some videos of gameplay and such, but I never played GTA 5. We shall see. It's still over a year away, which means they still have a year to tweak it and develop it. Let's wait and see. The only hype has been that one trailer we saw. So Rocksteady is keeping things actually reasonably quiet with GTA 6, which is usually the sign of a good thing. It's usually a bad game that just gets a significant amount of overhype, of like a lot of hype. The ones that get a lot of hype are usually the ones that it's a little telling that, okay, this is getting built up a little too much. GTA 6, we haven't heard too much about it. So, hopefully that means that Rockstar is putting their heads down. They're not worried about the media. They released one trailer and they said that should be enough to whet people's appetite for a year and a half. Let's keep working. Maybe we'll release something 6 months from now. Another little morsel for people, just so people remember it's coming out. And if that's what they do, I think that'd be the best thing to do. The best thing to do would be do it exactly like that. Keep your head down, work, don't worry about press because GTA 6 as a brand is hype enough. The fact that people know it's coming out, that it's being worked on, that there is a projected release date of December 2025, that is all the hype they need. That word of mouth has been plenty to keep interest in the game alive. They can drop a few nuggets here and there to tease with it, but not making big statements, keeping your head down. Like I hope to God that people from Rocksteady do not start going to the media, the entertainment journalists, and start making stupid ass statements about anything other than we're working our asses off. We're trying to make a fun game for you, for people, and we hope you enjoy it. That's the extent of any press that should come out of Rockstar. That's it. Yeah. Well, and we'll see if GTA 6 has something new and different to work with. Anyway, I'm getting off track and I'm not listening to Ackman here, so let's see more what Ackman has to say.
Who can function in the role of an anti-hero, because we need to have the freedom to be a merciless outlaw, kill people, rob banks, and eat babies. Also, we have to stick with the cowboy western setting. I doubt many fans are going to want to play a Red Dead Redemption game set in World War I or some shit. Unless we do. Wait a minute. We could do cowboys and aliens. Oh. But the setting of the Wild West and the American frontier has limitless potential, so there are plenty of stories waiting to be told. But if we're going to put redemption in the title, then the game would have to fit that theme. A Red Dead Redemption game without the redemption would be like Resident Evil without the Resident Evil. Rockstar could make a Red Dead game without the redemption title. They did it once before, but given the success of the first two games, this might make it harder to market, and brand recognition is kind of the king in the world of business. But without any restrictions on our creativity, let's...
Well, I mean, theoretically, Eki, they could do something like that a la Ghost Recon, where they have, a little area where they can sort of inject that cowboys versus aliens thing, like some movie. Because Ghost Recon did that with both Predator and Terminator. So, potentially speaking, Rockstar could do something like that if they wanted to, because you have a big open world map and you've got sections of this map that you could have the like cowboys versus aliens thing limited to that little section of the map. Does it, Grim? Oh, that sucks. I'm sorry. Someone last time was saying that they were having a problem with the video also. Like everything seems like it's running fine on my end. I've got a really solid kilobit rate upload, so everything seems fine on my end. I do think Twitch may be having a bit of maybe having something of a schizo moment because someone was talking about having a problem with the video last week too. Well, Grim, if it helps, I don't have ads running. I'm not running ads on my stream. So if that helps, you can turn off the ad blocker while you're watching my stream because I don't have ads going. I probably won't even consider start running ads until I have at least like 100 people in in the stream at one time. But until then, I'm not gonna have any kind of I'm not gonna have ads. Oh, Ammo, thank you. Oh wow, for 3 Ammo, thank you so much for the 3 months in advance. Uh, there are ads? Oh, that. How are you getting ads? How are you getting ads, Grim? I don't have ads running. So if there's ads, it's not. Oh, Corey, you did get an ad when you got an ad when you joined. When you first joined, you had an ad. You shouldn't have. I don't have them running. Uh, yeah, I'm glad you found me on YouTube. The ad on joining is a Twitch thing. Oh, is it? Okay, so it's a Twitch thing. It's not anything that I did. Okay, that's good to know. Um, okay, yeah, because I specifically have left ads off. I very specifically left ads off. I did not engage ads, so I guess it's a Twitch thing. Okay, well, anyway, so let's hope Twitch stops having the schizo attack.
Think about potential ideas. There are still plenty of questions that could be answered, but should they? So we really only have two options as far as a setting is concerned. We could have a prequel or sequel. The games take place between 1899.
In my opinion, in my opinion, I think the third Red Dead might benefit more, as much as they're a little divisive. I think Red Dead might benefit from a prequel where you can play around with the weapons a little bit more. Maybe, dial it back so you don't have like the carbines and the single action Colts. Maybe it might be going back a touch far, but you could go back to like the Civil War era with Red Dead. And that way, Civil War, if memory serves, they did have revolvers and the beginning of the carbine, but not I think if memory serves, Grim, towards the end of the Civil War, you actually had like single action revolvers. Towards the end of it, just like towards the end of the Civil War, carbines were starting to come into play in terms of weaponry. It was still primarily musket, but carbines were starting to come in, as were single action revolvers were starting to come into play. So you could go back to that time period with Red Dead. Well, okay, so as instead of like a lever action carbine rifle, like what is in the Wild West, uh the carbine rifle I'm referring to was a breech lift carbine, where you would. By the way, how stream been since I gave overview? Pretty good. Stream has been good, I would say. People are here, we're having a great time, so I'd say the stream is good. But the carbine I'm referring to it was like a breech lock carbine that had, it wasn't like cased ammo. They had like, I don't know, I'm trying to remember this. It's been a while since I thought about it. I think they had like packs, like made up packs that would go into the breech. You would close the breech to from the top, and then you could shoot, and then you could open the breech again and put in a new pack into the breech to fire your next round. So that is the kind of carbine that I'm referring to. That's basically how the carbine began. It was before Yeah, it was like the very beginning of it. It was the infancy of it. Uh, but Red Dead could dial back to that age. You could play around with the weaponry there. I don't think you could do a sequel further into the future. Uh, because realistically speaking, the Wild West was a short time. So I think they'd have more stories to play with if they went backwards and did prequels.
In 1914. We kind of want to stick in that time period. I suppose the next game could be set so it runs alongside these games, but then it'd just feel like we're rehashing what we already have. Let's say you want 3 to be a prequel, but if you take Red Dead and go too far into the past, there we are with muskets, and it's not a lot of fun. It's kind of why Battlefield 1 introduced automatic weapons even though they weren't really a thing in World War 1, because it makes the game more fun. But Red Dead Redemption really emphasizes the realism. Yeah, maybe we do another prequel where we play as Hosea and we fight in the Civil War. I call this idea Red Dead Emancipation.
And that's it. I'm thinking not the Civil War, but like right at the end of it or just after the Civil War had ended, I think would be a good spot for Red Dead Redemption 3 if they went that route.
Let's say you want 3 to be a sequel, go too far into the future, and it's no longer a game about the harsh life in the Wild West. It's no longer a cowboy game. Are we gonna play as Jack as he's conscripted into World War I in Red Dead Duty? So the setting doesn't leave a whole lot of wiggle room if we want to continue this story. RDR just hits the perfect sweet spot. Like when I was born, I'm going to be one of the last generations that remembers what it was like to grow up without the internet. I can tell you what, there weren't many furries back in them days, boy howdy. Yeah.
Making me cringe,
But these games take place during an amazing transitional.
Well, yeah, and Grim, that's another option. The problem is if they want to. Oh, thank you, Emma.
Sexualized gifted a tier 1 subscription to Grim Graham.
And it still didn't work. I'm gonna have to work on that. The thing is with yes, you could move it to Australia. The thing is with the Red Dead 3, is it still going to follow the same family? Because as I understand it, with Red Dead, you're following the same family through Red Dead 1 and then Red Dead 2. You're following the son in Red Dead 2. So if you want to stick with the family, you wouldn't be able to move it to another location like that, and that's the problem. Yeah.
Period. The end of the Wild West. The dawn of civilization and order. The death of the outlaw. One of the most important themes of the games is learning to let the past die, to move on and accept things that cannot be changed. This theme is something you could apply to the continuation of Red Dead Redemption as a series. But the theme has been greatly explored across these two games, and there's really not much more to say about it or add to the existing characters. And yet this theme is so integral to the narrative of Red Dead Redemption, it's hard to imagine a third game that...
And Grim, that's the thing, is are they going to do it a spin-off or do they want to, or does Rockstar want to have it be a continuation? That's the question. Because one thing they have to consider is, what is the draw for Red Dead Redemption? Is it the family story that's been told over the course of 2 games? Or is it just the sheer environment and atmosphere of said game that is the big draw? Corey, thank you. Thank you for the gift sub. And House Guest, thank you also for the gift sub. Thank you so much.
My house guest gifted a tier 1 subscription to Dovo
Stop doing it!
year.
I'll figure it out later. Anyway, so yeah, that's the question, Like, okay, chat, you tell me. The Red Dead Redemption, the Red Dead series, what is the draw for it? Is it the family story? Or is it just the sheer, like the graphics, the overall story itself, minus the family and the atmosphere. What is it that drew you to the series as a whole? Because that's the question that needs to be asked. When, if it's the family story that's bringing people in, you probably have a difficult time marketing a spin-off series because people are already very wary of the spin-off series. Very wary of spin-offs. If people cared more about just the overarching, like, contained story and the atmosphere and the gameplay, if that's what people really loved with it, then yes, you could do a Red Dead 3 that doesn't focus on the family line running through Red Dead 1 and 2. And if that is the case, which I suspect it might be, because every time there's commentary about the game is not so much about the family story. It was just the story in the self-contained game, the atmosphere, the gameplay, the gunfights, all that stuff. That's what people liked. So it does lend credence to the idea that you could do a spin-off, you could do a Red Dead that doesn't follow this family anymore and goes to a completely different character. And you can have it set in a different part of the country. That's the thing, you could always move it to a different part of the country. It would take place different. Well, I think it would be too big for a DLC because if you're doing a spin-off, you're talking about a completely different location and a completely different story. That's something that's much, much larger than a DLC. It is. That's something that's much, much larger. But again, if people don't really care one way or the other about the family line, having 3 being from the perspective of a totally new character in a totally different location, yeah, could work just fine. Absolutely.
It doesn't explore the end of the Wild West. Maybe the next game takes place during the prime of the Wild West, but I think that'd be less interesting. The point is, the setting is difficult to pin down, but with all that said, let's jump into our first real idea. Red Dead 3
I don't count Ubisoft.
should be a sequel that stars Jack Marston as the protagonist. You really want to play as a fucking bookworm nerd? No, I'm just kidding. Of the 8 surviving members of the Van der Linde gang, Jack is the most obvious choice of protagonist. Unless, of course, they were to retcon Uncle's death so that he just like faked it, or maybe we could go for like a my heart wasn't actually in my chest thing. Then we could play as Uncle. Write that down, write that down! No, it'd have to be Jack. Everyone else is dead, or their story is finished, or their story should be kept vague. But how would you continue Jack's story? And that was the day I, Jack Marston, stopped being a fucking dork and decided to follow in my father's footsteps to become an outlaw.
I want to be a gunslinger when I grow up.
Over my dead body.
In this dying Wild West. No,
Well,
get that
she
shit
said it.
out of here. Playing as Jack, I feel, would spit in the face of what these games are about. How would you actually give Jack a redemption arc without ruining the ending of the first game? You can't. In RDR2, Arthur Morgan finds redemption through selfless acts and sacrifice. The life of an outlaw has literally poisoned him, and he uses his last months alive to try and become a good man and to do the right thing. He gives the people around him a chance to escape a horrible fate and live a normal life. In RDR1, John Marston redeems himself by stepping up as a father, protecting his family, and leaving his past as an outlaw. In fact, he works with sheriffs, governments, revolutionaries, law enforcement, all sorts of authorities to stabilize and bring order to an area the Van der Linde gang had devastated. After John's death, Abigail dies 3 years later. With nothing left to lose, Jack goes to get revenge on the man responsible, Edgar Ross. When the deed is done, Jack looks at his pistol, like he's thinking about throwing it into the river. But then he holsters it, because Jack is going to use that pistol in the future. That's the message. We don't need to see Jack Marston follow in the footsteps of his dad, Dutch, or Arthur. Why?
Because of the implication.
The implication that he does follow in their footsteps and will meet the same fate is way more powerful. It's shown to us without words. We understand without being told the cycle will continue. Revenge is a fool's game, and the only way to save yourself is to let the past die and to move forward. So what redemption is there for Jack? What does he have to redeem? The sins of his father or the Vanderlyn gang? Everybody already paid for that with their lives. Now remember that you...
Well, that is the question, Grim. But I will say there hasn't been anything that I have seen thus far to indicate that's going to happen. They've made a shit ton of money on GTA 5. And they didn't need to challenge any kind of the story to make it any kind of stupid, modern day something. So we'll have to see. I mean, Rockstar has been seeing everything that we've been seeing with a lot of these AAA studios putting out crap after crap, how they're shooting themselves in the foot with their advertising. Rockstar's been sitting there in the background watching all this just like we have. Yeah, there's the shark cards, but low key. Keyword there's low key. So we'll see if that has an effect. I don't know. I haven't heard too much coming out of Rockstar, which I'd consider good. So we just have to see where they go. I mean, let them put out GTA 6 first. Let's see how GTA 6 does. And then we'll see what happens if they want to press forward with a Red Dead 3. Let's fitting for the topic at hand here, but let's not put the cart before the horse. In both with both GTA 6 and a potential Red Dead 3. So, Rockstar has been doing things pretty right so far. And they haven't, you haven't really heard about them in any of these game journals or anything like that, one way or the other. That's a step in the right direction, in my opinion. So, we'll just have to wait and see. That's all we can do.
You typically have some agency over the events, right? As John, you don't have to kill any of your former gang members. But when you play as Jack, you have to kill Edgar Ross. You don't have a choice because Jack doesn't have a choice. Jack has nothing to redeem. He's the ultimate victim of the Red Dead Redemption story. Despite their best efforts, neither Arthur or John could save him from the cycle of revenge and violence that led to their demise. I feel like Marvel has ruined people's brains when it comes to good narrative storytelling and analyzing it. It's like people forget that stories are supposed to end. They're supposed to be a page one and a final page. But we've been led to believe that if a series keeps making money, then the story keeps going. Until it's eventually ruined, of course. Now, some people might say, but Actman in GTA 5, you can find a...
Yeah, The Dark Knight had it right. You either die a hero or you live long enough to become the villain. And industries like Marvel have lived long enough to become the villain. Because they are basically, they're content with milking dust at this point. And that's exactly what they're putting out is dust.
A book called Red Dead that says Jay Marston as the author. Jack doesn't become an outlaw. He just killed Ross, was never captured, grew old, and became a writer. I'm sorry, but that ending fucking sucks. That's what Jack wanted to be, not what he became. Also, these are two separate universes, right? We don't need an RCU. I think this book is just a nice reference and Easter egg. And it's for these reasons I think having Red Dead Redemption...
Yes, Grim, Star Wars 2. Basically, everything Disney. Just kind of lump that into everything Disney. And we'll save a whole lot of time.
Redemption 3 be a sequel that stars Jack Marston is a terrible idea. Jack embracing the life of an outlaw instead of that of a writer is poetically tragic. It's perfect. And the only thing that can ruin perfection is adding imperfection. So let's leave Jack's story where it is.
Our time has passed, John.
Idea number 2, RDR3 should be a prequel that shows the formation of the Vanderlyn gang, ending with the Blackwater Massacre. You might disagree with me when I say this, but when I'm done saying it, you will agree with me. The Blackwater Massacre should never be shown. Absolutely not.
You don't want to do that either. You think you do, but you don't.
Let me ask you a philosophical question. Why do
Look, Corey, how do you think they make those non-dairy creamers? That's powder. Eh? Eh?
we have puzzles? What is it about the human condition that made us want to create puzzles for other people to solve? Because human beings inherently seek answers. We are curious about the unknown. It's part of our DNA. So what's more fulfilling, being told the answer to a puzzle or figuring it out for yourself? Red Dead Redemption is intentionally vague about certain details. We don't need to see what happened in Blackwater for the same reasons that we don't need to be told who the strange man actually is. As a writer, what information you give to the audience
You put powdered milk in regular milk to get more milk? No, I think you get diabetes.
is just as important as what you leave out, what you leave to the imagination. It's far more interesting for Blackwater to remain vague than it is to explicitly spell it out for us.
What really went down back there on that boat? We missed you. That's what happened.
Because when you talk to characters that were there, you have the element of an unreliable narrator.
Blackwater was about surviving, John.
Not for that girl, it weren't. You okay? I was on that boat. I saw what Dutch and Micah did, but he won't admit it.
Nobody really gives you the full picture, so it's literally up to the...
Now again, I have not played Red Dead, so I'm not familiar with the Blackwater Massacre. I'm guessing it was a whole mess of people got killed on a boat. But I will agree with what Ackman is saying here, and it's something that a lot of the entertainment industry has forgotten about, is you can tell a much more compelling story if things of significance are left mysterious and questionable, such as in the case of the unreliable narrator or multiple unreliable narrators. That mystery is something that I think has been lacking in modern entertainment. It's like people in the entertainment industry feel like everything has to be explained. Like the audience has to have everything explained to them. You know, kind of like with what I talked about last week regarding Doctor Who, how his history was a giant mystery and is what made him an interesting character, as a part of what made him a very interesting character. And then during one of the recent seasons, they just decided, fuck it, we're gonna explain the Doctor's entire backstory, and it completely ruined him as a character, amongst other things. Having that mystery, having that unknown or that uncertainty is much more engaging for an audience because it allows their imagination to just go wild. And the audience will find much more engagement with something in that respect than just being told everything. But for some reason, the entertainment industry thinks that their audience members are 10-year-olds that need to have everything explained to them these days. And that's why we're seeing so many of them failing.
Player to piece together what really happened, and even then the puzzle isn't complete. It's because all the questions aren't answered that this event is like mythological. People desperately want to know exactly what happened, and that's what makes it interesting. And because everybody you talk to about it avoids giving explicit details, you as the player get the vibe that this was an event, this was an experience that nobody wants to relive in their minds. The idea that it was so horrible nobody even wants to imagine it is more powerful than whatever Rockstar could come up with. But
for one very specific reason. where he was just talking about that the idea of it being so horrible is so much more powerful is because of one very simple reason. Because we as the player, are an outside observer. So if they actually showed something in game where they actually showed the massacre, you as the player might go, huh, okay, well, that's maybe a little bit interesting. Seeing it happen, but actually, like, not having seen it, but seeing the aftermath and the effects it has on the character, the emotion that the emotion they're able to express regarding it, that is much more powerful because you're seeing the aftermath of a mysterious event, but you're seeing how it's affecting the characters. So if you were to actually see the massacre, you as a player, the game is all about killing. That's what the game is about. The game is about shooting and killing people in Red Dead. So seeing a whole bunch more of people get killed, okay, if it's a whole bunch at one time, yeah, maybe you'd be like, okay, that was kind of interesting, but it wouldn't be nearly as impactful as not seeing it and instead seeing the emotional reactions and the aftermath. That's because then, even as an outside observer, you're still kind of seeing it through Arthur Morgan's eyes because both you and the character are witnessing and experiencing the emotions coming from the secondary characters. So it's just like if you were in place of Arthur Morgan and these characters were telling you about this, they're talking about what happened in their own words and you're hearing the emotion in their voices. So you can more effectively put yourself into the shoes of the main character of which you are supposed to be embodying. And that is what makes a mystery like this so much more powerful is because it will evoke an emotion that simply witnessing it in a video game that's all about killing people won't be able to evoke. And so Rockstar was very smart to do it that way. And yes, like the Ackman said, I hope they don't change that because it will remove a lot of the agency that Red Dead Redemption 2 had in terms of that emotion.
Also, Dutch kills a woman in cold blood in a bad way in Red Dead 1, so you can kind of infer what it was like. So for me, showing the Blackwater Massacre in a Red Dead Redemption 3 is completely out of the question, which begs a new question: what would be an appropriate climax for Red Dead Redemption 3? And I can't really think of one. I've also heard the idea that maybe Dutch could be the protagonist, and we could watch him as he forms the gang. To that I ask, do you want a prequel to Dark Souls, Grey Souls? Do you want to see how Gwyn became the Lord of Cinder and why he linked the First Flame? If you have any self-respect, your answer should be no. The idea of playing as Dutch is wrong on so many levels. First off, he's not a character that we should have any agency or control over. That's why the gang fell apart, because nobody could control Dutch and keep him from going crazy. So how would you implement an honor system if you played as Dutch? Dutch didn't have any honor. And second, our three playable characters have established a pattern in that we don't know their ultimate fate until the very end. Arthur Morgan was likely created and made the star of Red Dead 2 specifically for this reason, so we could play as a character whose story we don't already know. It's why Arthur's journey ends in chapter 6 and John's begins in the epilogue. They closed the book. It's a book. They closed it. There's not much more to do. And here's the thing, the games can be played in either order. So if you play 2 first, you still don't know what happens to John. We know Dutch's fate, and we can't exert any control over it or change anything about it like we could with Arthur. So there's no point. Not to mention, we already know Dutch's life story. We know it from start to finish pretty much. To make a game where we see even more of that, you wouldn't be reinventing the wheel. You'd be breaking it.
Ah, I broke the goddamn wheel.
And I get it. People love the fuck out of these games and these characters, and they just want to find a reason to look forward to a new game. I get it. I want more Halo games set between Halo 1 through 3. But to understand why you like something so much, you need to look at it from a writer's perspective. What is best left to the audience's imagination? If you
He hasn't brought this up, and I don't know if he's going to, but chat, correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the characters, the main characters from the Red Dead series, they probably screwed a prostitute here and there, I'm sure. They probably slept with at least one or probably more women over the course of their lives. This was the Wild West after all. What if the sequel was an illegitimate child of one of these characters? Then you could have a whole new character with a whole new story, and that story kind of can dovetail into how he was a part of this family line. Or was a part of this, it was like a branch off from this main story, but this character still has their own story. And you know what? You could even go the route if you wanted to. Let's see. Character we're forgetting about that could be made into and may serves love interest's younger brother. It could work, but the question is if you wanted to the question is if you wanted to maintain the family line. That's the thing is, did you want to maintain the family line? And I'm going off that note. If you wanted to go off the family line, that's something completely different. And, it's if you want to go off the family line, then you have no limit to the level of sequels that you can play with. But if you want to maintain the line, you can have it being an illegitimate child. And honestly, with the Red Dead 3, you can make the child a boy, or you can make the child a girl. I personally see no problem with Red Dead 3 having the option of you taking on the role of a female character. If you saw, maybe make it an option. But I don't see a problem with that because this is the Wild West. And there were female bandits. They were unusual, to be sure, but they were there. See, Arthur and Mary were romantically involved when they were younger. Exactly, Gory. It's like Arthur, I'm sure, it's entirely possible that there is an illegitimate child of Arthur's out there somewhere. Make that you could have Red Dead 3 being taken from the point of that illegitimate child. That might probably be the best way to go from a story perspective. That way you're still maintaining the family. This character, they can open up where it's not known that this character is the illegitimate child of Arthur Morgan. And then as the story progresses, things like little clues may be dropping or something, and maybe it's revealed that this character is the illegitimate child of Arthur Morgan. And then it's a question, then you can have the question of based on what's happened in the story so far, am I quote unquote doomed to follow in the footsteps of my father as an outlaw? And that could make for an interesting game potentially. So from a story perspective, you've got a lot of places you can play around with here. If you've got a good story writing team. That's the key. You need to have a good story writing team. And so far, Rockstar has done pretty good with that. Now, whether or not they're able to maintain it, that's a question. And it's one we're going to have to wait on the answer for.
As a writer, explicitly answer all the questions, then what's left for your audience to talk about? Nothing. Because you've done the job for us. You've filled in all the blanks, given us all the facts, and made no room for error or interpretation. You can see the genius in this type of writing. I'll give you an example. Let's look at Micah. While most people would agree he was a rat working with the Pinkertons trying to sell the gang out, Micah never admits this himself. We never find hard evidence he was working with the Pinkertons. No letter like, "Hey, Agent Milton, how you doing, buddy?" And we don't have any flashback scenes to show Micah meeting with Milton. So because there's this tiny crack in the door, there's this sliver of doubt, we have something to talk about and interpret. Somebody could play devil's advocate and say, no, Micah wasn't a rat. But, you know, it's heavily implied that Micah is the rat. They literally have a rat run out of the house before Micah comes out. It's implied, not directly stated. Seeing how the gang was formed is far less interesting than how it fell apart. So a game set during this time period would feel wildly anticlimactic. We already know how the gang formed and why. Dutch was a manipulative idealist with a silver tongue who recruited and convinced people to join him, people who were at their weakest point. They were outcasts, wanted by the law, targets of discrimination, orphan children, alcoholics with crippling back issues, and the undisputed love of my life, Sadie Adler. Dutch is a man who preyed on the weak and only really cared about people as far as he could manipulate and inspire loyalty in them. We don't need an origin story to explain this. Showing the origin of the gang would be superfluous because we already know everything. And yeah, you may have to look for those chunks of the story, but it's there. I mean, Red Dead 2 is not a short video game, and that's what makes it fun to experience. You know, all those camp conversations that are easily missed, you have to piece all that together. I haven't heard a good enough idea for Red Dead Redemption 3 that doesn't just start with making it completely disconnected from the two games we have and starting fresh. But if that's what they're gonna do, then what's the point of adding redemption? If they call it Red Dead Redemption 3 and it has nothing to do with the first two games, then that's just black.
So if the end doesn't she, why not do something from her perspective? Maybe she had a child. Corey, tell me this: were Sadie and Arthur involved? Did the two of them sleep together? Yeah, because depending on if they do a sequel, depending on how far in the future, they could have they could have Sadie as the lead character, or Sadie's child that she had with Arthur that Arthur never knew about, that maybe she kept it hidden from him. And in which case, again, if it's child thing, it's like what I was going back to earlier, where you've got this child, where you've got this child that doesn't know that they're the child of Arthur Morgan, and they have to go and they slowly come to find out, and then they have to decide, no, am I going to be an outlaw like my father, or am I going to do something else? Or with Sadie, like, is she going to reconcile with her past? House Guest, I think the idea of like an undercover sheriff infiltrates the gang, I don't think that would work from a story perspective. It would be, I think you would end up being too similar to all of these other quote unquote undercover cop kind of games where you're an undercover cop that gets in with the mob or the Yakuza or something. Okay. Yeah. I mean, like I said, there are a lot of rich story ideas available. It's just a question of if Rocksteady is going to make use of them or if they're going to move forward with it. We just have to wait and see. Yeah, Sadie's story could be very interesting.
Black Ops 3 all over again. It's a sequel in name only because of brand recognition. And by the way, I don't want people to stop brainstorming these ideas. And I might sound like a party pooper, but come on, fellas. We have to
be practical now.
Also, this fucking Reddit comment. You could literally make the main character Molly O'Shea and it would still be a masterpiece. You see, I feel like people are just desperate for more from this series because they love it so much.
Well, and the Pinkertons are still a quote-unquote law enforcement agency. They're just a private security agency now. The Pinkertons actually went after a gamer or something because of I don't know, a copy of a game they had or something like that. Yeah, well, they're now they're thugs. They've become what they fought. They have become what they once fought against.
Here's the third and final idea. Red Dead Redemption 3 should be a prequel that stars Landon Ricketts. Now, I myself am a Landon Ricketts simp. I think he's one of the coolest, most awesome, fascinating side characters of the franchise. And I think it's super cool that people even think he's worthy of starring in his own game. In Red Dead 1, Landon Ricketts is a famous, revered elder.
I'm sorry, it wasn't a game. It was cards. I think it was the Pinkertons. I think went to try and go intimidate a guy who got like Pokemon. He was accidentally sent like early release Pokemon cards or something, and they went to try and go intimidate him to get him to send them magic cards. Thank you, Grit. Yes, magic cards. It was not yet released magic cards that he was accidentally sent by the company, and they tried to intimidate him into giving them back. That's right.
Elderly gunslinger, living out his final years in Mexico by the time we meet him as John. And he teaches us a new trick with Deadeye, gives us some life advice. But we could shoot the Landon Ricketts idea in the foot real quick. For starters, the voice actor passed away a while ago. And unlike the other essential characters, Uncle, Javier, and Abigail, Rockstar didn't recast Landon in Red Dead Redemption 2. They kept him as a cameo.
Killed more than Landon Ricketts without even pulling a trigger.
So he's not integral to the plot at all, even though apparently he was involved, or at least there, during the Blackwater Massacre. So Rockstar could have included him as a character, they could have recast him, but maybe out of respect and or practicality, they decided not to. I think it's clear Rockstar has no intention of bringing Landon Ricketts back, but we can still entertain the idea for a moment. And by entertain, I mean dunk on. You see, Landon didn't have a redemption arc. And again, we fall back on the we already know how his story ends thing. But he was able to reform himself and fit into the landscape of the dying Wild West. Albeit he's very confused how he managed to do so. But it's partially because he wasn't an outlaw.
Oh, wait, what, Corey? What did you just think of? Okay. Hang on, let me write it down so I can take it to the patent office. What is your elevator pitch? Yeah, okay. Mary and Arthur marry lovers and presumably her having a child. What if Eki didn't miss too well. We're postulating on more things that could be done for Red Dead Redemption 3 if it was a sequel versus a prequel. Was Mary's kid brother introduced after she and Arthur had already been lovers? Like a significant amount of time? Because you have to look at time here. You know, when did Arthur and Mary, when were they lovers? And would that fit in terms of, you know, the age of the child? If so, then that could work. That could, then with some clever writing, that could indeed work. It could. And that does go back to the illegitimate child idea that I was talking about earlier. So yeah, it could work.
He was a gunslinger and a bounty hunter. So we already had his redemption arc off screen. We know where he ends up and we can leave it at that. Landon works best as a mysterious veteran gunslinger, the last of his kind. He says he's in Mexico waiting for something, but doesn't know what, as if he didn't expect to get this far. Landon Ricketts is the exception to the rule of Red Dead Redemption. You don't get to live a bad life and have good things happen to you. Landon has killed a lot of people. The only reason he's still alive is because he was the best.
I know, it happens to me too, Corey.
If he wasn't, he'd be dead. The only reason he's in Mexico hanging out in the first game is because he doesn't know what else to do. And when John comes around, it's almost like Landon sees a part of his former self in this man and wants to try and set him on the right path. Landon wants to give John the wisdom that he wished he got. Now, it's possible that a Red Dead 3 starring Landon Ricketts would avoid rehashing the plot of the first two games, and we could see the glory days of the Wild West, but I also think he works better as a legendary side character. He's not important enough to be a protagonist. Well, Axeman, you've shot down all these ideas. You best have one that's good enough yourself, do you? Yes. Yes, I do. And it won't ever be made either. Undead Nightmare 2, I rest my case. Hashtag fuck it, we bought. But on the real, I think starting fresh is the right call. The series is Red Dead, not just Red Dead Redemption. I haven't put too much thought into my own ideas, but you want to start from the title and then work from there. So a title like Red Dead Revolution, Red Dead Revenge, Red Dead Repeater, you want something that fits that same theme that can also spark some creative ideas, you know? At the end of the day, the story of Red Dead Redemption is complete. It's finished. I mean, there are so many hours of dialogue and cutscenes, conversations. There's so much lore to unravel. I haven't even fucking read all of Arthur's journal yet. And there's journal entries for Arthur and John. Many of the side quests can be completed as both characters. Arthur has multiple different endings and cutscenes if it's low honor or high honor. The story is complete. All of the backstory is there. And it's for all these reasons that I think Red Dead Redemption 3 doesn't make any sense. I think it's time for a new perspective. You know, Arthur told us,
when the time comes, you gotta run and don't look back.
And if we just keep looking back, you know what the next game's gonna be? Red Dead Regression. If the franchise is going to continue, it can't stay shackled to these characters and to the past.
I want you to not look back.
But what do you think? Do you like any of the ideas or theories for Red Dead Redemption 3? What's your own personal concept or idea for it? And make it good before you post your comment. Let me know all your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. I'm really looking forward to reading what you guys have to say. I have been overanalyzing Red Dead Redemption 2's story. I've been preparing some kick-ass videos, so excited to share them with you. And don't forget to like the video if you enjoyed it and subscribe to the Axeman for more awesome content. All right, cattle rustlers, that's all I got for today. This is the Plan Man signing out. Peace.
Red Dead 40K, how is it? That's a good one.